Hello and welcome back to Bookmark Chronicles, and welcome to my couch. So I am going to do a book and TV series review for The One by John Mars. I started reading this, I think yesterday, and I'm about halfway through it now. I've been tabbing it up. I don't really know if you can see that, but I've been tabbing it up as I go. And then I want to watch the Netflix series and see which one I like better. So this will be similar to what I did for Station 11 and No Exit. The first half of this will be completely spoiler free. And then I'll get into spoilers towards the end, but I'll give you a warning before I do that. So this is about a company that is sort of similar to, like, you know, those ancestry things or 23andMe or whatever, where you submit a DNA sample, but instead of matching you with your family, it matches you with the one person who is supposed to be like your soulmate. But basically what's happening is that a lot of people are getting matched, and some people are happy about it, some people aren't. Marriages are being broken up because married couples are finding out that they are not matched to each other. So it's been interesting so far. And so we have, I think, like 6 characters that we're following, and you get their perspectives in order over and over. But every time you come around to the same character again, something sort of crazy happens. Like, shit has gone left for everybody after they find out who they're matched with, or for some of them beforehand. But it's really interesting, and I'm actually enjoying it. I feel like I'm gonna end up enjoying the book more though, but we'll see how it goes. I am also doing a blended read. The audiobook is available on Scribd. I started doing that because at the beginning it was a little boring, but once you get into the hang of it, it definitely picks up. So I definitely don't think it's boring, but I'm gonna continue following along so I can tab things up. I have a lot of red flags so far because weird shit has happened, and some of the characters are really fucking annoying, so I'm interested to see how they translate into the TV show. So I just finished it, and I actually really like this. I'm gonna tell Robin to read it because I think she would really like it too, because it is very messy and there are some twists and turns that I didn't expect, and I think she would like that aspect of it as well. So Monet both read and watched and said that while the book is a thriller, the TV show isn't. So I feel like I'm not gonna like the TV show as much, but I would rate this 4 stars. Like, I was genuinely intrigued, and I lied. There are 5 characters that we follow, not 6. But the ending to some of their stories is really fucking interesting. So with the 5 people that we follow, they don't ever meet each other. None of their storylines converge, but we kind of just follow them as they all get matched. I am going to start watching the series. I don't know if I'm gonna like it as much. I wonder if they change anything about the characters, because I actually individually liked all of the storylines. They were all very interesting. They were all surprising, and I really enjoyed that. So we'll see what changes they end up making. So I just finished episode 1, and it's already very different, and I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing just yet. At this point, it's not gripping me the way that the book did early on. And in the book, the characters that we're following are Mandy, Christopher, Jade, Nick, and Ellie. And in the show, one thing that was changed immediately is that Ellie is now Rebecca. The book was written in 2017, the TV series is recent, so I think a lot of the changes are to make it more modern. But as far as the other characters, I'm not sure if all of them are still going to be included. At this point, I don't even have names for a lot of the characters that we met in the first episode, so I don't know how that's going to go yet. But I'll keep watching, and hopefully I get more interested in it. But I guess we'll see what happens. So it's the next day. I thought that there were more episodes, but there are only 8, and I just finished episode 4, so I'm about halfway through. The TV show completely derails from the book. So if you've read the book, don't go into this thinking that you know anything, because it's completely different. Honestly, the only common factor at this point is the title and the fact that people are being matched with their soulmate genetically. That's it. Everything else completely fucking different. And it does still have sort of a mystery element to it, but it's definitely not as interesting as the book, I think. So I don't like it as much, but I am still intrigued at least to see how it ends. I'm a little disappointed, to be honest, because there were some elements of the book that I think would have been really interesting to see on screen, but I'll either finish this today or tomorrow, probably. I'm remote today and then I have to go back to the office tomorrow, so I could probably finish it today. I could finish it today, so I'll probably do that. Okay, so I finished the TV series and I liked it. I think if I were gonna rate it, I'd give it maybe a 3.25. However, I think that my expectations are a little skewed because I watched it immediately after reading the book and expected there to be more similarities. So for the book, I would recommend that one if you enjoy short chapters, very short chapters. Usually they're like 2, maybe 3 pages. Some of them are a little longer, but for the most part, it averages about 2 or 3. If you enjoy more of a thriller vibe, if you like bouncing around from different perspectives, then I would definitely recommend the book. If you enjoy more of a sci-fi, but also that has a mystery element, but not so much that thriller element, then I would recommend the TV show for you, and it's only 8 episodes, so you can get through it pretty quickly. If you are planning to both read and watch, I would say just separate the two in your mind and pretend that they're not really connected at all, except for having the same basic concept, because they're really not as similar as I expected them to be. So from my understanding, this was supposed to be only a limited series with just 1 season. There is definitely potential for a season 2 though, especially with the way that things end up in the very last episode. I don't know if they're planning to do that, but it came out in 2021, so I would think that perhaps if they were going to, we would learn something sometime this year. Honestly, I think I would be a little disappointed if they didn't do it, only because there are a few elements that I'm very curious about, and I feel like why put them in the very last episode if you're not going to do anything with them? But that's just my personal opinion, and we all know that Netflix loves to cancel shit, so who knows. Overall, it was a good time though. This is the only book and movie adaptation that I can confidently say that I've enjoyed and reviewed so far, because I didn't really love No Exit and I hated Station 11, so that's something at least. But that is all that I can say without spoilers, so if you are planning to either read and or watch The One, this is your official spoiler warning. Okay, so for the book, again, I rated it 4 stars, really enjoyed it because I was really surprised by a lot of different things. There are 5 characters that we're following, all of them have been matched, and I'm gonna go through this in the order of the characters that we follow and just sort of give you their whole situation and talk about the batshit crazy things that went on in this book. So first we have Mandy. She finds out that her match's name is Richard. Unfortunately, after a little searching, she finds out that Richard is dead, and she basically finds out that his family is throwing him a memorial service, so she decides to go, which I think is a little weird, but she decides to go. While she's there, she meets the sister, and then eventually she starts talking to the sister more and also meets his mom, and they welcome her right into their family. Mandy is already close with her own family. She has sisters and she's pretty close with her mom too, but she hasn't exactly told them what's going on with her match and everything, so she's kind of hiding that from them. So Mandy has always dreamed of finding her match and starting a family, and Richard's mom, Pat, says, you know, she always wanted grandchildren, and so because Richard had also been sick when he was a teenager, he had cancer. I don't know if it's the same as freezing eggs, but I guess he froze his sperm. I don't know if that's what you do with sperm, but whatever. So, you know, Pat was like, I know this is really hard for you and I know you never got to meet him, but if you did want to still have your family and still have it be a part of him, you could have the sperm. And so she's thinking about it and she's like, that's a little weird. I have to explain it to my family. And then she gets into an argument with her sisters because they're like, what? You can't do that. You don't know this man. You don't know that family. Like, this is really weird. She makes some really disgusting comments towards her sisters. One of the sisters has been matched and is married to her match, and the other I guess they assumed she was matched, or she told them she was matched, and she was like, actually, we're not matched, but we love each other, so we stayed together. And so Mandy says something about like, oh, well, like your kids are second best because you didn't have them with your match. So that blows up, and she like ostracizes herself from her family. And then she goes back to Pat and was like, yeah, I want to have his baby. I think she had like an old phone of his. She's going through it and she finds nudes from an ex-girlfriend, and she's like, oh, I need to know more about him. So she meets with this ex-girlfriend, Michelle. And Michelle is like, I'm really surprised that you and Richard are matched. He said he would never take the test. He doesn't really believe in it. He's such a free spirit. He was always wanting to travel. He doesn't want children. Children kind of annoy him, da da da. And oh yeah, and his mom and his sister like tried to give me his sperm. It was really fucking weird, so stay away from them. And Mandy's like, oh shit. So then she stands up, and at this point she is like visibly showing by the time that she reached out to Michelle. So Michelle was like, oh fuck, you're screwed, get away from them. So Mandy goes home. She moved in with them. Now all of it was very weird. She moved in with them, and she's packing her stuff, and she's getting ready to leave, and they had just gotten back. The sister's name is Chloe. So Chloe and Pat just get back, and they're like, where are you going? What are you doing? And she's like, I can't be here. Like, you guys lied to me. You lied to me about Richard, and apparently he doesn't even want kids, and I met Michelle, and da da da. So they get into an argument. One of them, I think, tries to grab her suitcase. She ends up falling down the stairs. So she ends up in the hospital. They end up having to deliver the baby by C-section while she's unconscious. And she wakes up a few days later. The baby is gone. They took the baby. So they end up being able to find them, and it turns out that Pat is not the biological mother of Richard or Chloe. It appears that she kidnapped them too, but now she has the baby. Oh, it also turned out that Richard wasn't actually dead. He was in a coma or like a vegetative state, and he was being held at a like a nursing home. So she goes to see him with the baby, and she's like, oh, this is your son. I'm sorry that we never met. I'm sorry that, you know, all this happened the way it did. And her last chapter is him like squeezing the baby's hand or something. So I guess he's gonna wake up. All right, whatever. Then we have Christopher. Christopher's chapter opens up with him like, he's like sitting in the living room or whatever, and he's like talking about like a woman, and like referencing that she's in the kitchen. So I was like, oh, like maybe, you know, this is the meetup with his match and she's cooking dinner or something. And so it's just like talking about like the decor in her living room, and then he goes into the kitchen and it's like she was on the floor where he left her, and I was like, what? Christopher is a serial killer. I was not expecting that. He is a psychopath. He knows he's a psychopath, and his goal is to murder 30 women and get away with it. And so he has a calling card. He will murder a woman, leave her in the exact same position in the kitchen, go murder someone else. He takes Polaroids of each of them, and then he'll go back to the previous crime scene and leave a Polaroid of the next victim on her chest. And then he goes outside and paints a black stencil of like St. Christopher. And that's how people know that he was there. Anyway, Christopher gets matched with Amy, and Amy's a cop. He's like, I know I don't feel feelings the way that other people do, and I'll just, you know, meet with her and see how things go, whatever. But he allegedly ends up falling in love with her to the point where he doesn't enjoy killing as much anymore. So he's like, all right, I'm gonna stick to my plan. I'm gonna do 30 and then I'm done. And people are gonna be talking about this forever, and just as suddenly as the killing started, they'll stop and blah, blah, blah. So he continues his kills. He's continuing to date Amy. And when he goes for his 30th, he would like know that they were in bed already or sleeping, and he would drop something so that they would come out of the room, and that's when he would go after them. And so he does that, but she doesn't come out of the room. Amy, being a cop, figured it out. She's been following him. She figured it out only like, I think a couple weeks before she like went into action. But what ends up happening is that Amy ends up killing him the way that he has been killing all these women. And like right before then, she's like asking him all these questions. She was like, was any of it real? Were you playing me? Like, da, da, da. And he's like, no, I actually do love you, and I didn't think I could, but I do. And then she kills him and sets his body on fire. but she never tells anyone because she's like, I am a female cop, and people find out that I was dating one of the most notorious serial killers, I will be discredited. So she kills him, sets his body on fire, and goes on with her life. That was definitely the most interesting out of all the scenarios, I think. So yeah. Then we have Jade. Jade lives in, I don't actually know where this takes place, somewhere in the UK. And she gets matched with Kevin, but he lives in Australia. So she's talking to her coworkers and they're like, well, you have to go meet him. I mean, he's your match. Like, what are you gonna do? And so she's been talking to him a lot. Like, they talk on the phone, they text, but he's never agreed to do any sort of video chat. And they're like, that's weird, but you know, he's your match, so just go. So she decides to buy a plane ticket, doesn't tell him, and just pops up. She's like, hey, guess where I am? And he's like, at work? And she's like, nope, I'm here. And he's like, you shouldn't have come, and hangs up. So she goes up to the door, knocks on the door, and she's like, what the fuck? So somebody opens the door and it's not him, but it looks like him. So she's like, okay, well, they're related. And she's like, look, I'm his match. I don't know what's going on. I thought he'd be happy to see me, and apparently he's not. So Kevin comes out, and it turns out that he is terminally ill, which is a part of the reason that he never wanted to video chat with her. And she's like, you could have told me. So she spends time with him, his brother, his parents. They live on a farm. She's helping them out on the farm. And Kevin's like, I know that this isn't exactly what you wanted, but you know, we did talk about marriage and I only have a little bit of time left, so will you marry me? And she says yes. Now, right before this happens, she falls in love with the brother. There's like this theory that when you meet your match, you have this feeling that's like fireworks and blah, blah, blah. And she feels that, but with the brother, and his name is Mark, I think. But she still goes through with the wedding because she's like, it'll make him happy. He doesn't have much time left, whatever. So they get married, and then he dies shortly after. The brother has been avoiding her because he also is attracted to her. And so at first I was thinking that there might be, like, perhaps she was matched with the wrong brother, since it is based on genetics. Like, perhaps that could happen, like you can mix up siblings. And that sort of plays into a little bit of the TV show, so I'll come back to that. But it turns out that she is actually matched with Mark, but when he did the test for both of them, Kevin didn't have a match. So instead, he told his brother that he was matched with Jade and that he didn't have a match so that he could have someone. Then we have Nick. This was an this was a good one. So Nick is engaged to Sally. Sally really wants to get matched. She just wants to know. She's like, well, what if, you know? She's like, we should just do it just to know. Sally does the test. She didn't get a match, but Nick gets matched with a man named Alexander. He's like, this doesn't make sense. I'm straight, whatever. And Sally is like, no, we should find him. You should go see him, blah, blah, blah. So Alex is like a chiropractor. He's not a chiropractor. He's something else. Physical therapy, something, I don't know. But Sally's like, you should go make an appointment just so you can see him, see if anything happens, like see if you feel that spark that everyone talks about. So Alex goes, he says he's been having, Nick goes and says he's been having neck pain or whatever. Alex adjusts him or whatever, and he's like, I don't feel anything, like whatever. And then as he's leaving, they lock eyes and he feels it. And he doesn't tell Sally at first. They're continuing on with their wedding or whatever. And their friends, their best friends, Deepak and Samira, are also matched. They're an Indian couple. And Samira was honestly the one that kept putting it in Sally's ear. You should get matched, you should get matched, blah, blah, blah. Alex and Nick end up seeing each other again. They end up falling in love. He sort of has an emotional affair. And then he finally tells Sally, but the way he told Sally was that he like basically calls out Deepak and Samira. He's like, you're lying about being matched. You two aren't matched. I know what it feels like, blah, blah, blah. He and Sally separate and Nick starts seeing Alex. Alex's father is sick and he's from New Zealand, so he's planning to go back home sometime soon. Nick is planning to go with him, but then Sally finds out she's pregnant. So Nick has always wanted to be a dad and he wants to do the right thing, so he calls things off with Alex so that he can be with Sally and take care of his child. They're gonna try to work it out. Sally goes into labor and she's in labor for a very long time. She ends up having some complications, so they take her to get an emergency C-section. Sally dies during childbirth and they show Nick the baby, and Nick and Sally are both white. but this baby has melanin. Turns out that Sally's match is Deepak. And so they've been having an affair, despite the fact that Samira just gave birth to twins. So Nick loves this kid, he's taking care of him, but he goes to confront Deepak and he's like, what the fuck? And he's like, yeah, Sally's my match. We had an affair for a really long time. Samira knew about it, which is why she hasn't really been talking to Sally lately. And he's like, I want to stay with my wife. I want to stay with our kids. And I will give up my parental rights to this little boy if you want to keep him. So Alex adopts Dylan, that's his name. And then he flies to New Zealand to be with Alex. And then the last one is Ellie. Ellie is the CEO of a big company, and I guess it's supposed to be a surprise, but you pretty quickly figure out that she is the CEO of The One, or in the book it's called Match Your DNA. She eventually gets matched, and it's this guy named Tim, and so she goes to meet Tim, and she's like, he's not my usual type, but you know what? I think this will work out. Everything seems great between the two of them. He doesn't have any family, but he meets her family. Everybody loves him. They get engaged and everything's going really well. But as you can see from the way that this book is going so far, it can't actually all be well. So it turns out that Tim's real name is Matthew. And Matthew's mom worked for Ellie in the very beginning stages of the company, and Ellie did some shady shit to get the company started. They stole DNA from a database. Matthew's mom was one of the early employees. She did not give her consent for the DNA to be submitted, but she did. Eventually, his dad got matched with someone that wasn't his mom, so he left her. And then his mom found her match, and he was both abusive and a pedophile. So to get revenge, Tim hacked Match Your DNA and mismatched him and Ellie, but also mismatched a ton of other people. So a lot of the matches might not even be credible. And so he confronts Ellie in her office about all of this, and she gets angry at one point and she throws something at him and knocks him out. And then when he starts to move, she hits him one more time. Now, she calls her security guard and was like, hey, we need to do something about this. And then her assistant is like, hey, there's like a live stream coming from your office. There's like a 15-minute delay, but their whole conversation is being live streamed. So the conversation that they had, the mismatches, and his death are all sent to computers of everyone in the company, but also on like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. Ellie tells her assistant to shut it all down if she ends up going to jail. She's waiting her trial, and then the very last page, it's like, oops, the page you are looking for can't be found when someone is going onto the website. So the assumption is that she ended up going to jail. So quite interesting, very messy, really enjoyed it, honestly. Hello. So I had filmed this along with everything else, but I was explaining the events of the TV show in chronological order instead of by storyline, and watching it back, I felt like it wasn't concise enough and like easy to understand, so I'm gonna redo it the way that I did the book recap because I think it just makes more sense that way. So in the TV show, it's safe to say that there are 3 main storylines that we're following. First, we have Hannah and Mark, who are a married couple. We have Kate and Sophia, who are matches, and then we have Rebecca, who is essentially Ellie from the book, just given a different name and sort of has a different storyline. And I'm gonna start off with the one that I found the most interesting, and by interesting, I mean messy, and that's Hannah and Mark. So like I said, they are married, and my very first note about Hannah was that I did not like her. This is kind of reminiscent of the storyline with Sally and Nick, where Sally really wanted them to get matched. Hannah really wants to find out who Mark's match is. For whatever reason, she is like obsessed with figuring it out. So she is sending in DNA, and you think that she's getting herself matched. She sends in her husband's DNA without him knowing. And it turns out that his match lives in the same city as them, and she decides to befriend her. When I tell you that Hannah is kind of fucking psycho, I mean that. She meets this girl, her name is Megan. They have a yoga class together, and I don't know why befriending her seemed like the best thing to do, but it makes sense for your husband to know who your friends are. So one night she's like, oh, I'm gonna go have dinner with Megan at her place or whatever. And so she does that. While she's there, she steals one of Megan's sports bras. A few days later, Mark is like, oh, you had dinner with that Megan girl. Did you like her? And she's like, yeah, she's okay. Why? And he's like, oh, no, I'm just wondering. He's throwing her a surprise birthday party, so he takes Megan's number out of Hannah's phone to invite her to the party. So when Megan shows up to the party, Hannah starts being super fucking weird, and she's like, oh, I'm not feeling well, I think we should go home. So they end up leaving. And then after that, the next day, she tells Mark, oh, I don't think I want to be friends with Megan anymore. She's gay. And when I went to dinner with her, she made a pass at me. It was really uncomfortable. She like stops responding to Megan's calls, stops going to the yoga class. And because Mark had called Megan to invite her to the party, Megan calls him and was like, hey, do you know what's going on with Hannah? I feel like she's upset with me, but I don't know what I did. I thought we got along really well, so I don't know what's going on. And Mark is like, oh yeah, she's probably upset because you made a pass at her. And Megan's like, what are you talking about? I'm straight, why would I do that? Mark goes back to Hannah, and at one point she takes the sports bra that she stole from Megan and is like, does this smell weird to you? And he's like, I don't know, what's wrong with it? And she's like basically trying to see if he's gonna have any sort of reaction, whatever. But then he confronts her about what Megan said, and he's like, why are you lying? Like, why are you being so weird about this? And she's like, because she's your match. So Mark goes back to Megan and is like, apparently we're matched. And she's like, oh, that's weird. And he's like, yeah, but you know, I'm married and I love my wife, so sorry. Then it like starts downpouring, they end up kissing, and Mark is like, no, I can't do this, whatever. So Hannah is just making it worse because she won't shut up about it. And he's like, why did you even do that? I never wanted to get matched. We were happy, and now we have this sort of hanging over us. And then he kind of starts seeing Megan, like they meet for coffee here and there. And then at one point, yeah, they were in a coffee shop and they end up screwing in the bathroom. Cool. And then he goes back to Hannah. At one point he had asked her to move out because he needed space. Then he tells her to come back. And then he texts Megan and is like, I choose my wife. And so Megan is pissed. Naturally. Hannah doesn't know that anything happened between the two of them. And then I guess Megan is from Australia, so she decides that she's gonna move back home. Hannah, being the fucking psycho that she is, orchestrates running into her and is like, oh, I just really wanted to say goodbye since you're leaving. And oh, I took this from your apartment, gives her back her sports bra. That's not fucking weird. And so Megan is like, okay, pretends to hug her and snatches a piece of her hair, and she sends it in to find out who Hannah's match is. That's where that storyline ends. I fucking hated Hannah. She was super fucking weird. Hated the whole thing. The amount of infidelity in this series is just odd to me. Like, no one is attached to who they're supposed to be attached to, and I found that weird. All right, then we have Kate and Sophia. So Kate is a detective, and that's going to intertwine her with a different storyline, but that's completely separate from the Hannah and Mark situation. Kate lives in London, Sophia lives in Barcelona, but they've been FaceTiming and chatting, and so Sophia is planning a trip to come visit Kate in London. The day that they're supposed to meet up, Kate's waiting at the bar, and Sophia never shows, so she thinks she's getting stood up. I don't remember how she found out, but Sophia was on her way to meet her and she ended up getting hit by a car, so she's in the hospital and she's in a coma. One day Kate goes to visit her at the hospital and there's this other woman there and she's like, oh, hi, who are you? And she's like, I'm Sophia's wife. They have a little bit of tension, but then at the end of the day, the wife, Valeria, is like, you're not the only one. She's cheated on me multiple times. Maybe you can make her happy since you're her match. Sophia had also told both of them that she didn't have any family. Someone calls Sophia's phone in case. Kate answers it, and it turns out to be her brother. So her brother and her father are actually alive, and they fly out to see her in the hospital as well. So eventually Sophia does wake up, and Kate is like, your wife is here, so are your dad and your brother. And she's like, I don't want to see my dad and my brother. They're not a part of my life. And Kate's trying to figure out why. But Valeria pretty much gives up on her and is like, that's your match, so you can have her. But it turns out that Sophia, when she was younger, a teenager, she was in a car accident with her mom and her mom died. And basically Sophia is responsible. She got mad at her mom because she wanted her to take her to her friend's house or something, and her mom told her that she needed to go home and study and do her homework and whatever. And so Sophia grabbed the steering wheel and ended up making them crash. Why you would grab the steering wheel when someone is driving, I can't come up with any logical reason to do that, teenager or not. That was just really fucking stupid. Sophia's brother Sebastian, while Sophia was in a coma, Kate and Sebastian were spending a lot of time together, and at one point Sebastian is like, I have really strong feelings for you. I've never felt this way about anybody. And this is what I was talking about in the connection with siblings in the book. I was wondering if, since it's genetic matching and you do share genetics with your siblings, if that could somehow skew your matches, and if you could be matched with the wrong sibling potentially, because that's what I thought had happened with Jade and Kevin. At the end, it turns out that there is something there, that matches with siblings can get a little tricky, but we don't really find out more about that, which is why I'm kind of hoping that there is going to be a season 2, even though I don't think that there was originally a plan for one, and season 1 came out in 2021. So if anything was going to happen, I think we'd find out about it this year, but I'm not really sure if anything is in the works, and probably not, because that wasn't the original plan. Although that makes me upset because I want to know who Hannah is matched with and how she's going to handle that situation, because, oh, I forgot to say, at the end, Hannah ends up finding out that she's pregnant. But back to Kate and Sebastian, I think that Kate does have feelings for Sebastian as well, but she doesn't want to say anything because she knows that she's matched with Sophia, so she kind of just keeps him at an arm's length. Plus, he's engaged and is supposed to be getting married. Kate and Sophia get invited to the wedding. Then we have Rebecca. So Rebecca is the founder of The One. There's Ethan, who is her match. He's not. She's lying to everyone. Her real match, his name is Mateus, and he has a brother named Fabio. And then there's James, who is the co-founder of the company, but he's like a back-end partner. He doesn't really do the day-to-day stuff that Rebecca does. Before the company was started, Rebecca had a roommate. His name was Ben. Ben was in love with her, but she ended up finding her match because she broke into Ben's laptop. He worked for this company that had a really large DNA database. She took that information from his laptop, and that's how they started the company, with those matches. She does get matched with Mateus during that, so she goes and sees him, doesn't tell them that they're matched. She can't tell him because she got his DNA illegally, but she doesn't end up staying with him because they're working on getting the company started. At one point, Mateus and his brother Fabio do come to London to confront her. He goes to the apartment and Ben is there, and so Ben ends up telling him everything about how Rebecca stole the information from him and that he is Rebecca's match. That same night, Ben goes missing. Now, in present day, Kate, because she's a detective, is investigating a murder. They pull a body out of the river, and it's Ben. So she thinks that Rebecca is responsible. Rebecca is very much like a rich person who doesn't give a fuck about ruining other people's lives. So because Kate does have her information on The One, I think Rebecca hacked her, found a sex tape of her and an ex, and like sent it to all of her family and friends. Then at one point, Mateus' brother Fabio comes to London, and because he does know about the whole situation with Ben, and because now in the news that they found his body, he's like, oh, I bet the cops would be really interested in the information that I had and everything that Ben told me that night. So he blackmails Rebecca. She gives him a ton of money. He is a drug addict though, so at one point, he uses the money to buy drugs, and then he accidentally dials Rebecca, and she like hears the music in the background. She's like, something isn't right. So she and her guard go to where he is staying, and he is overdosing, and her guard is like, his pulse is really thin, we need to get him to the hospital. She says no, and they let him die. So then, because Mateus can't get in contact with his brother, he comes to London. He's like, has my brother contacted you at all? And Rebecca's like, no, he doesn't really like me, why would he? So he's like stressed out trying to figure out what's going on. They kind of can't be seen in public together because no one knows that that's her real match. She's pretending that her match is this guy named Ethan, whose match I believe died. So they live in this big house together, and he goes to all of her like social events and stuff with her. But even though they live together, they live in separate wings of the house. Eventually, Fabio's body is found, and Kate gets to Mateus and was like, just so you know, your brother, we pulled his call logs, and he did call Rebecca when he got here. So Mateus realized that she lied to him, and he agrees to help Kate, getting her to admit that she killed Ben. There's also a man that has been sort of stalking Rebecca. He stands outside of the headquarters of the company with a sign that says match made in hell. I think his wife got matched and left him. He ends up following her back to her house at one point, and then so at the end, when Mateus is getting Rebecca to admit everything, he's recording it, and the stalker goes to attack her. Mateus gets in the way and he gets stabbed, and so Rebecca is trying to put pressure on his wound, and she goes to reach for his phone to call the police to get an ambulance, and she notices that he is recording. So she wipes the recording. Mateus dies, but Kate is like, I know it was you. I know you somehow erased the recording. But that's sort of where it ends. So interesting. Like I said, I would love if there was a season 2, although I don't think that's going to happen. But overall, it actually was pretty interesting. Not as interesting as the book, but I did still enjoy it. If they did release a season 2, I would definitely watch it though, because I'm very curious about how some of the storylines would end. But those are my thoughts on the book and the TV series, The One. Let me know if you are planning to read and or watch them. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next video.